Hello and welcome to an executive summary update for Archimate 2.0, the latest update of the Archimate graphical modeling language for enterprise architecture, recently announced by the Open Group. This is me, Jon McLeod. I'm an Open Group certified trainer in TOGAF 9.1 and Archimate 2.0. Here's my email address, my Twitter ID, our website, and if you want to talk to me about anything you hear me say in this presentation, find me on LinkedIn at just about any of the architecture forums. We have points of presence in Melbourne and Sydney in Australia, and in London and New York. So what I'm going to talk about today is what is Archimate and why is Archimate 2.0 important to what I'm calling the architecture community. So who is the architecture community? I'll talk about that. How does Archimate relate to TOGAF? If I want to start learning and using Archimate, how should I proceed to do that? So caveats. What you're going to hear in this presentation are my opinions and my interpretation. It matter. So if I make any mistakes or if I get anything wrong, I am not speaking for the Open Group. Just be clear on that. And if you wish to disagree with me or just have a conversation about Archimate, please look me up on any of those multiple LinkedIn architecture forums where I hang out and let's talk there. So what is Archimate? This is an interesting definition, and I think this is going to contribute to some cognitive dissonance as to where Archimate falls as a modeling language in the hierarchy of architecture landscape layers of enterprise architecture, segment or domain architectures, and solution architectures. Let me explain what I'm talking about here. The Open Group describes Archimate as a modeling language for enterprise architecture. They use the descriptive term a graphical language. It's a graphical language for the representation of enterprise architectures over time, including transformation and migration planning. And if you're familiar with TOGAF, you know that they're referring to opportunities and solutions in migration planning phases E and F in the architecture development method, as well as motivation and rationale. So there's some significance to these words that the Open Group is using. Now I'm going to say here is where it gets a little bit tricky. The TOGAF architecture content meta model is a very robust and sufficient meta model for enterprise architecture, but it doesn't go down to the level of detail that would enable us to consider it to be a modeling language for solution architecture. If we want to model capability architectures, solution architectures, or technology architecture, the meta model simply doesn't give us enough concepts and relationships to use to define views of those. Archimate, on the other hand, does build out the TOGAF content meta model, and it does define sufficient concepts for solution architecture, business data application technology architectures, and it's also got a nice representation of active structure, behavior, and passive structure, which I won't go into detail on that at this point. Archimate does define a rich set of relationships between concepts too, and those relationships turn out to be highly significant to creating views of solution architecture. So you can see the depth of concepts in the Archimate meta model for information, behavior, and structure. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. These are concepts from the Archimate 2.0 business layer meta model. There's more. That's not everything. So you can see the depth of detail in the Archimate 2.0. Why is Archimate 2.0 important to the architecture community? What is the architecture community? These are the people and the roles in the architecture community. These are the people who need to talk to each other, communicate visions about architecture. We've got enterprise architects, of course. We also have business architects, project managers, an important class of people, business analysts, solution architects, application architects, data architects, software engineers, technical designers, and infrastructure architects. These people need to share a common language for expressing architecture so that we can develop a common understanding and make decisions, working collaboratively with our sponsors and stakeholders. How does Archimate 2.0 relate to TOGAF? Interestingly, now that the Open Group has two meta models, not just one, but two. You get the TOGAF 9.1 architecture content meta model, and these really intelligent people in Northern Europe came up with Archimate, a graphical modeling language for enterprise architecture, and they have eventually gone to the Open Group and said, how would you guys like to manage this? And we'll participate in the Archimate forum in the Open Group. And the Open Group said, sounds like a great idea. So now we've got two content meta models with Archimate 1.0, the previous version of Archimate. It was difficult to see how they mapped together, how they aligned, but recent work by the Open Group and the definition of Archimate 2.0 specification, it's a lot clearer how these two content meta models. Now, however, some tailoring is still required. You can use concepts from both content meta models, and you probably should. But there's some assembly required here, folks. Vendors are jumping on board to support the Archimate graphical modeling language for architecture. So your vendor, if you are using an architecture repository, you need to be thinking about your content meta model. It's important. And the Archimate modeling language has already been implemented by almost all of the major architecture repository vendors and modeling tool vendors and their partners. So you see the people down here: BizDesign, Orbis, True, Aris, Evolution, IBM with Rational, Software Architect, and Systems Architect, Metastorm, Essential Project, and Open Source Enterprise Architecture Framework, Mega, and Casewise. All of these guys now have Archimate plugins or extensions to their repository. Here is a really important reason why I think Archimate 2.0 is going to start taking off this year, 2012. It is defined as a formal certification. You can now sit a formal exam. You can sit in a classroom for 2 days learning about Archimate. We now have a certification for training providers, certification by the Open Group. So the Archimate 2.0 certification is now an internationally recognized and accepted certification from the world's leading architecture open standards organization. That's the Open Group. That means that starting this year, I believe, this is my opinion again, employers, people who are looking to join them, employers are going to start specifying Archimate 2.0 as a desired skill and a certification for candidate solution architects and enterprise architects. It's going to become a common language. And that is the way it is with TOGAF today. Enterprise Architects does recruiting of architectural people, and 80 to 90% of the job descriptions that come in from our customers specify TOGAF as a required certification or a desirable certification and skill set. It's a common language. Does having a TOGAF certification mean you're a good architect? No. It just means you're familiar with the language and the concepts, and that in and of itself is a good thing. So you're going to start seeing this as a skill set that employers are demanding, or going to start demanding, and that's going to happen in 2012. So you need to start thinking about that. If we wanted to start learning and using Archimate, how would we go about it? First thing I would do is I would download the Archimate 2.0 specification, the manual, from the Open Group website, and I'd have a go at reading that. And then I would recommend that you attend the 2-day Open Group certified Archimate training from an Open Group certified training provider. Enterprise Architects is. We will be running certification programs, training for Archimate 2.0 this year, and we're already getting expressions of significant interest from the community of architects and also from employers who want to know about Archimate 2.0. The second thing I would do is you need to start using Archimate. How do we do that? There is a wonderful free Archimate learning tool which comes from the nice people at archie.cetus.ac.uk. It's free. Download it from there. This tool, this application, it has been really well implemented and developed by Phil Beauvoir. It's easy to use. It provides an awful lot of assistance, help, and guidance within the tool, Archie. And Phil has implemented a very strong implementation of Archimate 2.0 concepts and relationship rules. It's a cool tool. Download it and start using it. It's a great tool for learning, but I'm going to be very clear here. I don't think you should use it if you've got to do consulting work within your organization as a team of architects. I don't think it's quite an enterprise class tool. It's very promising, but you'd be on the leading edge if you were actually using it for paying customers out there. I think you'd be better off having a look at the more enterprise class tools from the vendors that we looked at earlier. Let's just take a quick look at Archie and let me show you what it looks like. So here's Archie. I've opened it up to a diagram. We can see that if I select any of the concepts in a diagram, I've got this hints panel down here in the lower left side of the screen. That is the language taken word for word from the Archimate 2.0 specification, the manual. And that's really useful to have handy when you're learning to use Archimate. It tells you the typical relationships between concepts in Archimate and other concepts, and it gives you a few examples of the types of concepts, and you can see that the hints are changing. Here's business role, and we've got a nice structure for reposing our models in a folder structure here for models. And we look at the layers of concepts here. We've got the connectors. These connectors are very significant. They're very specifically defined. We've got the business layer. We've got the application and the data layer. And we've got a technology layer. Plus, we've also got these new concepts which have been added in Archimate 2.0: stakeholders, drivers, assessments, goals, principles, requirements. Requirements, useful. Work packages, deliverables, plateaus, and gaps. So there's a complete representation of the Archimate 2.0 specification in Archie. Plus you've got these cheat sheets over here about how to actually use the user interface for the tool itself. This thing has been really well implemented. You've got the Archie user guide and Archimate resources. They're really helping you out here. This is a really clever tool. I like it a lot. And some of the big into-town vendors could actually take a look at how well Archie has been implemented and learn a few lessons here. Now, the interesting thing about Archie is it is strongly enforcing the relationship rules for the relationships in the Archimate 2.0 specification. So let me go back up here to the relationships. I've got a business event. I want to connect that business event to a business process. Ooh, how would I do that? Well, I would do a flow relationship. Should I use the flow relationship? I'm kind of trying to remember the rules for relationships. Let me try it. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute. See that little circle with the diagonal bar through it? That means that's not legal. That doesn't make any sense. Well, then I think, okay. Well, oh, yeah, no, it was the triggering relationship. I should have used the triggering relationship. Let's try that. Connect the business event to a business process. That's the one I should have used. So very useful. And then Magic Connector makes it even more easy for you to create Archimate diagrams. And this is a simple example here. You can go crazy with this. So that's Archie. So back to my presentation, how best to start learning and using Archimate. Go and download Archie and attend an open group certified Archimate 2.0 training program. It only takes 2 days, and honestly, 2 days, that's just scratching the surface. That's 101 basic foundation stuff. The real learning, as always, happens when you try to use this to do some work. What about UML? There's going to be some UML people out there who say, oh, Archimate, no, let's use UML. Here's my opinion. UML 2.0 is going to continue to be a suitable choice for application developers, software engineers, database designers, technical designers, and especially, particularly, and this is just about a qualification here, if you are using UML's model-driven architecture capability, MDA. That's what UML was actually created for. Model-driven architecture, create the diagrams and the relationships, and then generate the actual framework code, the stubs, and the data definition language, the DDL, for a specific software application. Is UML an appropriate tool to use for managing an enterprise architecture or interrelated segment or domain architectures in an architecture repository where you need to have a consistent naming standard and achieve reuse? I don't think so. UML 2.0 meta models are very loosely defined. The nice thing, you would describe that that's flexible, and flexible is good, isn't it? Well, yeah, you can have too much flexibility. Those meta models are probably too loosely defined if we need to start coordinating architecture across multiple projects in an enterprise and trying to use a structured architecture repository to achieve consistent representation and reuse of architecture components and views. Again, folks, this is my opinion. Don't call the open group and complain about me. UML is too complex, I believe, to be used consistently by a team of enterprise architects, solution architects, business architects, and business analysts. TOGAF says we need to start working as a team. We need to have common, repeatable, predictable skills that everybody is familiar with. As a team, with UML, we typically find that there is one person on an architecture team who's the UML guru, and they're using UML. And he or she is using UML in an accurate and correct manner. Other people on that architecture team are using UML as a drawing tool. They don't understand the UML meta models and the relationships, and that's not good. So enterprise architects, solution architects, these people, all we need to do is to create architecture views at the contextual, conceptual, and logical levels only. Well, enterprise architects and solution architects really shouldn't be defining a build spec. So, in summary, what is Archimate? This is what we've talked about. What is Archimate? Why do I think it's important to the architecture community? Why do I think that Archimate 2.0 is going to be the inflection point for adoption of Archimate starting in 2012? How does Archimate relate to and align with and support and build out the content meta model in TOGAF? And if you wanted to start learning and using Archimate, how would we go? So I think we've covered those topics. Thanks for your time. Look me up on our website, or send me a tweet, or find me on any of the architecture forums on LinkedIn. My name is Jon McLeod. I work for Enterprise Architects, and I'm an open group certified trainer in TOGAF and Archimate. So I hope to see you in the future. Thanks for your time.